Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to crack open the playbook of a former FBI hostage negotiator. We're going to find out how you can get what you want, not by arguing harder, but by listening better. We're diving into the pretty revolutionary negotiation tactics from Chris Voss.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a super high-stakes scenario. But here's the thing. This wasn't a real hostage crisis. It was actually a mock negotiation, kind of like a showdown between two absolute masters of their craft. So, in one corner, you've got Robert Mnookin, a Harvard law professor, a total giant in conflict resolution theory. And in the other corner, Chris Voss, a former beat cop from Kansas City who worked his way up to become the FBI's lead international hostage negotiator. We're talking street smarts versus the ivory tower, right? So, in this, let's call it an intellectual cage match. The underdog, the guy with the badge, he didn't just squeak by. No way. He won, and he won easily. The academics, they were just completely baffled. See, the professor was coming at him with all these logical arguments, aggressive demands, the usual playbook. But Voss, he just calmly disarmed the whole thing with simple, open-ended questions, like this one. And you got to understand, this isn't a counteroffer. It's more like a request for help, and that move completely flips the script. And just like that, the expert's brain basically short-circuited. This approach was so unexpected. His face apparently got red, he couldn't think straight, and he ended up conceding. He had to admit, you know what? I guess the FBI might have something to teach us. So what on earth was this secret weapon?
Okay, to really get why that simple question worked so well, we gotta pop the hood and look at the human brain. See, the old rules of negotiation, they're built on a shaky foundation, a totally flawed idea about how we humans actually think. For decades, the big idea was that negotiation is all about logic. A problem-solving exercise. You just use reason to get past all that messy emotion and find a win-win deal. Sounds good, right? Well, that whole theory ignores one massive fact about us. And then along come these psychologists, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, and they just blow that whole idea out of the water. They figured out that our brains are basically running on two systems. You've got your slow, logical mind, the thinker. But the one who's really in the driver's seat, that's our fast, emotional, kind of animal mind. So it's our feelings, not our logic, that's really steering the ship. The thing is, we're all driven by these cognitive biases. They're like these little glitches in our thinking that make us act in ways that don't make logical sense. Take loss aversion, for example. We are way more motivated to not lose something than we are to gain the exact same thing. That's a huge lever in any negotiation. And here's the big takeaway. Feeling isn't the enemy of thinking. Feeling is a form of thinking. So if people are really driven by emotion and not logic, well, what does that mean? It means the entire rulebook for negotiation has to be thrown out. And Voss's new rulebook, it's all built around one single powerful and honestly pretty counterintuitive idea. This right here, this is the core of the entire method. And it's a huge shift in how you think about this stuff. It's not about being nice. It's not about agreeing with them or feeling their pain. Tactical empathy is about understanding their perspective, just seeing the world from their point of view, so you can figure out what's really driving them. The goal isn't to win the argument anymore. The goal is just to understand their world. So you stop trying to beat them over the head with logic. Instead, you switch into discovery mode. Your entire job becomes making the other person feel so safe, so heard, that they just start talking. They willingly give you all the information you need to get the outcome you want. It's a really quiet, subtle kind of power. All right, so let's get practical. Let's dive into the actual toolkit. I'm going to break down 3 techniques that are absolute game changers. And the best part, you can start using them right away, in literally any situation, from negotiating your salary to just dealing with your kids. Okay, technique number 1. Now, this is going to sound almost ridiculously simple, like no way this actually works simple. But it taps into this deep, fundamental human need we all have. We just want to be understood. All you do is repeat the last few words they said. It shows you're listening, sure, but it does more than that. It builds this little thread of connection that makes them want to keep talking, to explain more, and in the process, reveal more. Let me give you a real-life example. There's this bank robbery in Brooklyn. Voss is on the phone with one of the robbers. The guy makes this accusation. And Voss's natural instinct might be to argue, right? To defend the FBI. But he doesn't. He just mirrors the guy's last few words right back at him. And the results?
It was immediate. The robber was so caught off guard by this simple little repetition that he just lost it. He started, as Voss puts it, vomiting information. He gave up all this crucial intel, including stuff about an accomplice the FBI didn't even know existed, all from just repeating a few words.
Okay, next up is labeling. And this is basically tactical empathy in action. It's when you spot an emotion in the other person and you just call it out calmly. You start with something like, it seems like, or it sounds like. It's kind of like flipping a light switch in a dark room. You're not judging what's in there, you're just acknowledging that it is there. And the amazing thing is, once you acknowledge an emotion, it starts to lose its power.
So check this out, a super tense 6-hour standoff. Armed fugitives barricaded in a Harlem apartment. Now, the old school approach would be to make demands, right? But Voss's team, they did the opposite. They just kept labeling the number one fear driving these guys. They never said, hey, don't worry about it. Instead, they said, it seems like you don't want to go back to jail. Think about that. By calling out the negative emotion, by validating it instead of trying to argue it away, the negotiators completely diffused the tension. They built up just enough trust that the guys inside finally felt safe enough to open the door and surrender, peacefully. No one got hurt.
All right, our third technique, calibrated questions. And these are not your everyday questions. They're specifically designed to do one thing, give the other person the illusion of control. When you start a question with how or what, you force them to pause and think. And without even realizing it, they start solving your problem for you. And look at that. We're right back where we started, the question that stumped the Harvard professor. This is, hands down, the most powerful calibrated question there is. It's the ultimate way to say no without actually saying no. It's respectful, it's not confrontational, and it puts the ball right back in their court, forcing them to think about your side of the problem.
Okay, so we've got these cool tools: mirroring, labeling, calibrated questions. But how do we put it all together? You have to remember, these aren't just clever tricks to pull out of a bag. They're part of a whole new mindset, a new way of approaching basically every conversation you'll ever have.
The biggest shift is this: stop thinking of negotiation as a battle you have to win. Your goal isn't to force them to say yes. The magic words you're listening for are, that's right. Because that's right is the moment they feel totally and completely understood by you. And that is when the real breakthroughs happen. It's the green light that tells you you've built enough trust to actually start influencing their reality. So if you start treating every single interaction, I'm talking buying a car, asking for a raise, even figuring out dinner, as a process of discovery, you put yourself in this amazing position of quiet power. You're not just arguing your points anymore, you're listening, you're understanding, and you're influencing. So the only question I have for you is, what conversation are you going to change tomorrow?